Welcome to Where You're At, a podcast that highlights the work of alumni from the Journalism and Media Studies Department at San Diego State University. I'm Pete Frank Williams. Our goal is to share the success of alums, inspire current students with these stories, and connect students and alums for mentoring. And now, here's your host, Josh Shushan.
This week on Where You At, we are heading to Music City. We are going to Nashville, Tennessee to talk to a San Diego State alum who is just making us so proud. We're going to talk about having your own show and having a syndicated show and going to award show and working the red carpet. Our guest is Elaina Smith. She is a syndicated host of Nights with Elaina. There's like 150 stations around the country who have her show, and that did not happen overnight. I'm super excited to find out all the details about how she got to this place. Elaina, welcome to the Where You At podcast.
Josh, thank you for having me. This is so cool. I was just telling you how your background's making me so nostalgic. It's all San Diego. I miss it so much.
Yes, absolutely. Well, San Diego misses you, but at the same time, we're super proud of what you're doing. And so here's the thing. Okay. So we got this Southern California girl who was in Nashville, and I was reading up about how you got there. And I want to start with this. So you worked for Entertainment Tonight and for The Insider in Los Angeles. You're working for a very famous radio program in San Diego. Were you doing both of them at the same time as a student, or kind of give us the progression of like your initial steps to get into this?
I was doing it all at the same time. It was absolutely wild. I look back at it now, it's been many years and I'm like, how did I survive that? But I think it was just that, grind that was in me that was ready to do whatever I needed to do to make my dreams come true. And yeah, so I was going to school, I believe 3 days a week at the time. And so the other days I was interning at Entertainment Tonight, which turned into an AP position. But, I was driving back and forth late nights, and then the radio show came along about 2 years into my college, I think it was. Oh my gosh, everything's such a blur now. But that at one point I was doing all three, being a student, working in LA, and working on the morning show. It didn't last too long doing all three, but it did overlap.
Okay, so this morning show, I remember it as the Dawn Patrol. It's Dave, Shelley, Chainsaw. There's been a variety of different names on KGB. I remember when I first went to San Diego and I'm listening to this program and I was very entertained. Tell us how you got started with this radio station that really started to pave the way for you.
Well, I kind of fell into it, to be honest, because while I was working at Entertainment Tonight and being a full-time student, I needed money, obviously, but I needed a job that was very, very flexible. And I found this radio promotions job on campus at SDSU. And it was at the time, it was Jack FM. And I called them up. I'm like, listen, I can come in, probably weekends. I can definitely work. And they're like, that's usually where our events happen. So yes, we'll work with you on the schedule. So they were great with it, but at the time, Jack FM had no personalities on it. So they were asking me to every once in a while, like get up on stage, make announcements at the events that they had. And I loved doing that. And when they ended up bringing on Dave, Shelley, and Chainsaw, they had said, we're going to audition all of these women to come in. I know they did a lot of weather women in town, and they did all these other people, because Shelley was still under contract with the other station and was going to be for about 6 months. And because I was hosting all of these little events for Jack FM, they ended up asking me, last minute, do you want to just come in and try this? Like my PD at the time, Mike O'Reilly, he was saying, you're really good at this. Like, I think you should explore doing more stuff behind the mic, because I was doing all behind the scenes stuff at the time. And he's like, listen, you're not going to get this job, but I would love for you to just have the experience. And this doesn't come along a lot. So I'm like, okay, I'll do this audition with them. I was the last person to go in. We ended up doing a mock show for about an hour and a half. And 2 days later, Dave Rickards called me and he said, hey, I didn't think I was going to like you, but I kind of fell in love with you and we had so much fun. Do you want to come and fill in for this? And I'm like, oh, okay. So I did. And I really found my passion in that exploration, and I never really looked back. So while I was enjoying my time at Entertainment Tonight and The Insider, I was finding that through that experience, it wasn't really my passion, and I wasn't loving the environment, I guess I would say, of how you needed to be in order to really make it right there. And so this came into my life at the perfect time, and I got to find a passion that I didn't even know existed. It was awesome.
Oh, I love that story so much. Oh, it just warms my heart to hear about, like, well, you probably look, you're not going to get the job, but just do it for the practice of it, and then you end up getting the job, which is such a great like part of life. How much, by any chance, do you remember about that audition? Like what you guys talked about, and just, you know, getting the feel for this really long time running successful show, and when do I jump in and when do I not jump in, and kind of being respectful to what their brand is, but then also like showing, hey, this is what I got.
You know, it's such a blur, that moment. I remember walking in, sitting down, and they were like, "Do you have headphones?" And I said, "No." Like, I had never been on the air. I had never anything. So they had to go find me headphones. And then they just started talking. And yeah, you're exactly right. It was almost impossible to figure out where I fit, you know, because I didn't know. But at the time I'm thinking, and that's the beauty of kind of having like a little bit of naivete. Like, you sometimes you're not gonna overthink yourself. And I think that's what happened in that moment. So while I did realize, like, am I supposed to come in? Am I not? At one point I just did, and they brought me into the conversation, and Dave Rickards is so amazing at that, you know, shining the light on different people, and that's how he ends up shining, you know, shining his light on other people. And so I was very lucky in the fact that he made it very natural for that. So once I kind of got the idea, and that's something that I realized quickly came naturally to me, understanding where to come in and how to not talk over people, you know, which is a very big thing in radio. It just worked. So I went with what I felt in my heart, and that's what worked out best.
So they called you the Mexican Leprechaun when
Yes,
you were on
they
that,
did.
and it's still listed on your LinkedIn. So I feel okay in saying this. What is the story about how the nickname came to be and how often it was used on the air?
Well, I guess it happened pretty quickly, actually. I think with the curiosity and the excitement of DSC being back on air, because that's when they went over to KFMB for a short time. But well, they were there for a while. But when they came over there, and it was after this kind of first of its kind social media rally around the show, because when they were let go, just you know, that's when social media was still kind of new and people were figuring out how to use it. And they created all these pages of bring Dave, Shelley, and Chainsaw back, and that's how they ended up, you know, kind of ending up over at Jack. But they they are the most passionate fans, and instantly were very interested about who I was. What's this little young college girl doing on this, you know, heritage show? What's happening? So looked me up a lot. Social media comes in again. I ended up getting just so many followers within that first week that were listeners from there. And so they were seeing me and how tiny I was, and I'm a very proud Mexican American woman. And somebody ended up calling in and just saying, "Oh, she's like a leprechaun." And I think Dave said, "Yeah, like, but a Mexican leprechaun." And everybody just latched onto it. And I remember like really not liking it at first, because it's not my favorite thing in the world, you know, being so short. But that is what I attribute to making me so comfortable in my height and in my skin. So I am so very grateful to the audience in San Diego that gave me that nickname, and it just stuck forever. I mean, people will still comment on some of my stuff. You know, what has it been? Well, 13 years later, like, "Oh, the Mexican Leprechaun's doing great." And I'm like, "I see you, San Diego."
I appreciate you admitting that you may have not liked it initially, and I think that kind of the spirit of radio is just kind of roll with it, right? I mean,
Oh yeah.
especially a show like that, it's not always the most politically, you know, correct. There's times that it's very raunchy, and how nicknames can take on a life of their own, but also you kind of lean into something and you own it and you go, "Okay, I'm not going to let you define me by this. Like, no, this is who I am," and just kind of being proud of it.
Yes, I think there's something really powerful about reclaiming a narrative and
Mhm.
running with it, and being able to, just like you said, you know, if nobody, your feelings can't get hurt as often if you just embrace everything and lean into it and have fun with it.
So for a lot of people, whether they grew up in San Diego or whether they go to college in San Diego, they just think, okay, why would I ever leave? It's America's finest city for a reason. I want to stay here forever. And you could have probably continued to be on that show and on that radio station for a very long time to this day, and no one would begrudge you one bit. tell us when you started to think, I want to have my own show. I want to be the main person on this show, and what I need to do and where I need to move to in order to do so.
Yeah, I ended up realizing when I was getting closer to graduation, that I didn't want to be the little sister of San Diego forever. And I think I could have easily fallen into that. And it would have been okay. And I love San Diego, and my family was there at the time. So it was a hard decision, but I thought to myself, if this is something I really want to do, I need to start making a name for myself, because I could get very comfortable in that position. And I knew as I was continuing to work there and work with the greats, I mean, Dave and Cookie, and like they are some of the most iconic radio people of all time. And I look to them and I see their leadership and everything. And I knew that I wanted to be in that position. So it was actually thanks to one of my professors at SDSU that we had an assignment in our class in senior year, and it was to apply for a real media job. And this was kind of at the beginning of the semester. So he said, but I needed you to be serious. You have to actually apply for a job that you're qualified for. And when I turned mine in, I had applied to a morning show in, I believe it was Florida. And I had, all the qualifications. So he came up to me and he said, I was about to come to you and say you kind of failed this assignment, but you didn't, because that's what you are qualified for. And him saying that to me, saying that I was qualified for it, is what gave me the confidence to actually start applying. So I used that assignment and I ended up getting my first job out of college.
Who was the professor? Let's give that professor a shout out. Do you remember?
Professor Arsenault, Noah, he is incredible, and he really has inspired me throughout my career. I really feel like I owe a lot of where I ended up to him, because he gave me all that confidence. When I turned in my final paper, he looked at me and said, all right, now go get famous. I said, okay.
He really said that? Go get famous?
That's what he said. Yeah. And I'll never forget it. And it's just those little things. And it always makes me think about this through my career and how I speak to people and how I approach, everything that you say is important. And the things that you say could end up, that you might think are insignificant, could end up sticking with people the rest of their lives. And there were so many little things that he said to me like that stuck with me and gave me that confidence to go, okay, no, I have people that believe in me, that are in positions that I respect. And yeah, just it's really special.
I love it when people get encouraged to dream big.
Yeah.
So often we get told, be realistic. And yeah, you have to be realistic. But I also love it when people dream big and they inspire others to dream big.
Mm-hmm. And I've been able to witness a lot of that. And I hope that I pass that along as well, because I completely agree.
Okay, so I want to talk about some of these other stops. But before we do that, other just, cherished memories from San Diego State, even if you were only on campus a few days a week because you were so busy. What are some of your other just favorite memories of being a student on Montezuma Mesa?
It's funny. One of my memories that I look back at the most are seeing some of my friends rolling out of different parties and stuff when I'm heading to work at 2 or 3 a.m. It was so funny. And I would every once in a while see people doing the walk back to their dorm or their apartment and be like, hey, I'm going to work. Bye. Like that's always been such a funny memory for me. And one that I actually cherish, because the friends that I have stayed in touch with from San Diego State, we always laugh about that, and it's just amazing. But during the time I was there, we were amazing at basketball. And while I'm not a huge sports girly, I really enjoyed going to those games with all my friends, dressing up, just cheering it on, and just the excitement of the lines of trying to get tickets. And it's just, I loved being able to go out to Pacific Beach and be with everybody out there. Every single weekend, I feel like we were out there. Everybody was living out there. And just most of my memories that I look back at, I suppose, were what happened during my free time with all of the people that I met there.
I'm so happy that you have memories of a great Aztec basketball program, because my freshman year, we were 2-26.
Oh man, yeah, we had the championship.
Yes,
it was Ooh, yikes. Sorry.
And you also brought back. I was just recently back in San Diego, and I was hanging out with one of my old friends from who I met in the dorms, one of the first guys that I met, and somehow we started talking about spring break and how like all these other guys that I lived with, they would always go down to Mexico. And someone said, well, Josh, did you go? And my friend Tom said, no, Josh was too busy doing some journalism thing. Like,
yes, exactly. I feel like that was a lot of my college experience, to be honest. So the free time was where it was at.
Yes, indeed. Okay. So so when you left San Diego, you went to Florida. Is that correct?
Yes, the Space Coast in Florida. It was like Melbourne, Titusville. It's where NASA is. That's where I ended up.
Tell me about excitement, nerves. How are you feeling about moving across the country to go ahead and start what you are hoping will end up being your career and hoping that you will be famous, as Noah Arsenault told you?
Yeah, it was so many emotions. Oh my gosh, and it happened so quickly too. I mean, I guess once I finally was able to, because I ended up staying on for like one more semester post graduation. I had like one thing left. It was one of those things I walked and then had one class. And so I knew that I couldn't go anywhere until that finished. So it was late summer that I was starting to get calls for just interviews and everything. And I got a few offers, but there was one in Florida. And I'm like, okay, if I'm gonna move, I need to like commit to a place that's probably far away so I can just start and do everything on my own. Mm-hmm. And then once it actually came true and I realized that I was about to do everything on my own, it was terrifying because I knew nobody on the East Coast at the time. So I was just going by myself. And I had gotten this gig for a morning show. And the reason I took it, other than Florida wanting to be on like the other side of the country if I was going to move, was they were willing to give me a morning show where my name was on it. And that, for some reason at the time, was just really important to me. I felt like, I didn't really know exactly what I was doing, but I was thinking it would be ultimate to have my name on a show instead of somebody else's show featuring, Mm-hmm. So I took this job, and it was on another heritage morning show, but for the Space Coast, which ended up being kind of funny because it was a very beloved character over there. And it was just him and I. It was called Timmy and Elaina in the Morning. And it was, like I said, every emotion. I mean, I would go through the excitement and I would go through the absolute terrifying notion of knowing that I don't know any people here and they could hate me. And then what did I do with my life? And is this going to work? Is it not? And what am I going to do if it doesn't? Am I just going to end up being a waitress in Florida, which is fine. It just wasn't what I moved there for. So handling all of those emotions was really challenging, but yet I was able to focus on the work and building what my personality was going to be. And that's what got me through it. And then I ended up just really connecting with the audience out there pretty quickly, and it took off.
When it comes to working on a morning show, a lot of it sounds like it's just, we just happen to like bring this up. Oh, I just happened to see this little story. That's not the case. There's so much work that goes into sounding spontaneous and yet still not sounding scripted, even though we're gonna talk about this at a certain time. Tell me about your philosophy for researching these stories that are happening in the world and finding a way to connect with the audience about them.
I always try and look at every story and make sure that I'm not thinking of other people's perspectives, but I'm thinking of my own, because honestly, like that's what the audience is wanting to hear. They're wanting to connect with you and hear your opinion. And it's oftentimes not going to be the same, but that's why it works. That's what engages people. So my philosophy when I'm approaching it is to make sure I have an in and an out. Like I need to know how I'm getting out of each break. I need to know how I'm getting in. I'm going to need to know the why. You really have to dissect everything before you even approach it, because it's really easy to get lost in thought. And it's really easy to get lost in that, especially on the radio when you're live and people are listening and you also are including another person. So, when I was working with co-hosts, it would always be you're talking about it before. And then the night before you're texting because you're trying to figure out what's going to work for what breaks. And then you kind of rehearse them and just so you know where it's going. So yeah, there is spontaneity to it, but it's also a skill. It's also something that you need to prep for. And, you need to know, most importantly, where's the end of each of these things.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So we both work in radio. You work in a different industry than me, but for me, I mean, I'm broadcasting a live baseball game, but so much of what I say between pitches may have not been scripted out, but I have a pretty good idea. And it's all about the research to know when's a good time to tell this story and when's a not good time to not tell this story and just focus on the game. So I think that's so interesting.
It's time for a quick break from this week's podcast. I'm Amy J. Smith from the class of '98, and I'm a voiceover artist based in Los Angeles. I'm available for film narration, radio and TV commercials, documentaries, how-to explainer videos, and much more. You can contact me at amyvo.com. And now, back to this week's podcast. Here's Josh.
Okay, we got to get to Nashville. I mean, again, nights with Elaina, something like 150 syndicated stations. It's a country music and lifestyle show. How much country did you even follow growing up in Southern California before you got to Nashville?
Hardly any. I just wasn't surrounded by it. It's not that like I didn't like it. I mean, you know, there is that cliche that I hear a lot, and mostly from people on the West Coast, like, I like everything but country. And I grew up hearing that all the time. So I didn't have friends. I didn't have family that listened, but I would come across it every once in a while and enjoy it. And in college is actually when I had a roommate that loved country. And that's when I got really introduced to it. But never did I think that I was going to end up working in the world of country. Like, it is wild to me still to this day that I ended up here. But
so tell us how you did. Yeah. How'd you go?
Yeah, how it happened. When I was working over in Florida, I ended up working for a company called Cumulus, which is one of the largest radio groups in the world. And I was just in the smaller station, a really small market, but I had made some connections going to conferences and everything. And there was a man that I met. His name is Mike McVeigh. He's a legend in the radio world. And I bring back up being naive sometimes kind of helps, because I didn't know whether or not I could go up to this man. Now, knowing everything, I might not have, but I did. And I was just like, hey, I work at one of your stations out on the Space Coast. I would love to, just be able to connect with you, pick your brain sometime. It's like, send me your stuff. And I said, okay. So I sent him my stuff probably in like summerish time of the year that I moved out there. And then in end of October, I got a call from him saying, hey, I listened to your stuff. I've been listening quite often, and I go back to you quite often. And he said, there's this opportunity in Nashville. We need somebody that understands both the country and the pop world because of the way that country is moving. And we'd love to talk to you about this. And so I said, okay, like I don't work in country. He's like, no, I know. Remember, you work for me, but I think that this could be a really good fit. So I traveled out there to Nashville, and at the time it was this brand called Nash, and it was a national show they were getting ready to launch. And they interviewed me, and then about 2 weeks later, they said, when can you move? And I said, when do you need me? And they said, by the end of the year. So they had this really cool concept for their new syndication wing for country. And it was going to be 3 different shows. And one was a morning show, one was a nighttime show, and the other was a Kix Brooks led show, who's part of Brooks and Dunn. And he does a countdown every weekend. And so they were building everything around that. And I wanted to be a part of it, obviously. So I did not skip a beat. And I was really only in Florida for a year, and then moved out to Nashville. And here I am. And I've been here ever since.
And oh man, I'm so glad that Noah told me about you, because I'm kind of one of those who are like, yeah, I like a little of everything. I can do a little bit of country. And so I didn't even know about you until Noah told me about you. And now as I research and see all the things you're doing, man, I'm just so proud as another alum of all the different things that you're doing. Tell us about some of the most, look, you're interviewing some of the biggest stars in country music. Tell us about some of the most rewarding aspects of your job and what you're able to do.
Connecting people to country music is my favorite thing. And that became really evident to me very quickly, because we did immediately have access to all of these huge stars in Nashville, and everybody who's at the top of their game, we get to bring in. And I realized that I have a pretty solid gift for bringing these people that we put on platforms, on pedestals rather, down to earth and making them feel like one of us. So that has been really rewarding, being able to interview and just bring these people closer to the people that they love. And that works both ways, fans to their artists and artists to their fans. And just linking that all together with the love of the music, it's so rewarding. And being able to, I have a podcast as well that addresses just the lack of diversity in country. And that I would say that's probably been the most rewarding thing of my career so far, because country, another thing I learned early on, having coming from pop, where, it is very liberal, and there's a lot of women and there's a lot of diversity within it. I was realizing that when I was looking at our logs for the night, there would be some nights that there's not even one woman in the entire show. And so I basically asked for forgiveness after I started this podcast to start stirring things up, because people really, it was taboo. Like there's a lot of taboo things in country. And I ended up interviewing so many women in country music and telling their stories. And that has been wildly, wildly rewarding.
Oh, yes. I'm really glad you brought it up, because I think that anytime that you can, like you said, bring people together, and how do people bond? They bond over food. They bond over music, right? They bond over sports. They bond over entertainment. And so whenever you can use those types of areas to bring people together and tell those stories, I just think that's really special. And I think that's kind of the power of media when it's used correctly.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that. And it's been, at this point, I think I've been able to interview probably everybody in country. So every single time I make it a point to make that connection in a different kind of way than, just music.
When you're doing these award shows, when you're hosting, or when you're on the red carpet, tell me about the homework that you do to make sure that someone doesn't come up to you and you don't know who they are as you're about to interview them.
Oh, it happens. I will tell you that, because red carpets are the most wild thing I have ever done in my life. I mean, there's like no preparing for it. You can try your hardest, but it's never going to turn out how you try to plan it. It's never going to turn out anything like you can expect. But I mean, I like to say that I end up prepping all year long for a red carpet. I do it by just making sure I know everything that's going on within my genre. It's also part of my job to do that. And since I'm constantly interviewing artists, I mean, I have 1 to 3 artists on my show every single night, 365 days a year. So, that prep is always happening. And I think that's the reason why I think they do like media personalities like me to host red carpets, because we're constantly just woven into the industry no matter what. And when somebody does come up that you don't know, you might get one piece of paper or something right before they're coming up, so you'll know their name. You got to make sure that you can remember that. And then, there are certain ways that you can ask questions to get them to answer to where it doesn't seem like you don't know who they are. And I think that's probably one of the more challenging parts of the red carpet, but you make it work.
So when I lived in Los Angeles, I took this seminar. It was, I don't know, like 6 weeks or 8 weeks. And we actually did a red carpet show sort of assignment. And I remember telling the teacher, I'm like, I have no desire to ever, do a red carpet show. Like, what's the point of this? And he said, no, trust me. He goes, this is really good. So, and I actually spoke to a journalism class on campus a couple of weeks ago, and I actually encouraged them to do this. And the assignment was, so let's say that I'm the host, I'm the one who's on the red carpet, and another student walks over with a piece of paper, and I don't know who this is, but as they're walking over, they show me the name of a celebrity. And so in the 5 seconds in which they walk over, I have to immediately start thinking, okay, Who is this celebrity and what am I going to ask? And then you flip it the other way. So now they're the host, and now I walk over and I give them the sign that says, this is who the celebrity is. And this way you think on your feet, even if you don't know them, or if you only kind of know them, it's trying to find a way to be engaging and thinking on your feet about, even if you don't know everything about them.
That's such a great idea for an assignment for media students. Oh my gosh. That really is what it is. I mean, you've got to be on your feet, and it's really stimulating for your brain. Like, I mean, it goes by in a blink of an eye, because you're constantly just making sure that you have something ready to go. But yeah, that's exactly what it's like. So I'm glad that they're doing that.
Yeah. The other thing that I remember about that assignment is, I remember we were focused a lot on, okay, there's 2 of us, but there's 3 people involved in this conversation. There's the guest, there's the host, and there's the camera. And I'm curious to get your perspective on because you can't just look at the guest and you can't just look at the camera. So do you have any tricks, or just kind of how do you feel out when to look at the camera, when to kind of go back and forth, but not to make it look like you got a bobblehead?
I love the cheat to the camera. So there's a way in which, like, where the camera's set up that you can kind of cheat. They will usually put you on a mark, but to where when you're talking to the artist, I always am looking at the artist when I am talking to the camera, when I'm finishing up, when I'm starting. So like I'll start and I'm looking at the camera, and then I'll cheat the body. So then you're still a little bit engaged with the audience, but then I think it's also really important that you give that eye contact, you give that attention to the person that you're talking to. So it's just a really, it's all, there's so much to think about, right? Like you're thinking about your body, you're thinking about what you're going to ask them. You're trying to make sure you have the right name, the name of their wife or husband as well, because they might be standing right there next to them and you don't want to leave them out of the conversation. So you're just constantly thinking about all these things, but at some point it just comes naturally because you just feel it. You feel it.
Yeah, it's reps too. I remember when we looked back at the video of me doing this and you used the word think. And like when the camera looked at me, you could totally tell that I was thinking of my next question. Like my eyes are up or they're side to side. And it's so obvious that I'm trying to think about what I'm going to say next. But that's why you practice. That's why you have these assignments.
Yep. But that eye contact is everything, because that's also how you won't look like you're thinking. Where if your eyes are going like this or anything. Yeah, it's all about that eye contact and just remembering it's a conversation.
What was it like when you were on TV playing yourself?
that was really fun. But that's funny because I played kind of like a mean version of myself. So I was a little bit more like cynical and judgmental. And I was like, do I need a character name so people don't think I'm like mean? But they're like, no, we want it to be you. It was so fun. It was just the coolest thing being opposite Hayden Panettiere. That was on Nashville, and she was the kindest and made me feel so comfortable because I'm not an actor, but she really just made me feel awesome. And it was a long day. It's a long day doing that acting thing, man. But having to be myself over and over again, saying the same thing, at least I didn't have to reach too hard.
So between that experience and your experience with Dave Rickards, you've used the word kind and how welcoming they were in order to kind of help you along. And now that you have reached this level of your career, tell me about when you see an intern, when you see, a young girl who wants to get into the industry, and kind of some of the things that you try to do to pay it forward and mentor them.
Oh, I always try to make it very well known that I am very easy to reach. I am, I've got my socials out there for everybody. I always say DM me, like whatever. I'm very accessible. I try to be very accessible. I have ended up mentoring a lot of women in media that are and still continue to this day. And it's just, I think giving back and paving the way is one of the most important parts of having a bigger platform. It's about giving back and making sure that you are caring for what's coming next, because I care about this industry and I care about what it's going to become. And it's so important, and accessibility is everything.
I've been to Nashville a couple of times for minor league baseball and always had so much fun, especially at their new ballpark. Their old one, that wasn't so much fun, but that new one, that new one's really something. What else should people from Southern California know about Nashville? It is a massively, rapidly growing city. What else should people know about your current town?
Oh, it's not all country music. It is Music City for a reason. Like it's all kinds of music. We have a huge alternative scene. We have a huge Americana scene. We have a big pop scene now and rock scene. I mean, Jack White has a whole studio out here. This town is full of everything that you can possibly want except for a beach. And I very much miss that. I feel a little landlocked out here, but it's beautiful. And it's there's so much culture. And while Tennessee as a whole might seem like there is not, and in other places there, really isn't, there is so much here. And I'm really proud to be from Nashville specifically at this point. I've been here for about a decade, so I feel like a Nashvilleian, California girl at heart, of course, but I am a Nashvilleian at this point. I've started a life here. I've gotten married. I have a dog who's from Nashville, which sounds weird to me. Like my dog's never been to California. That's very strange. But yeah, I'm proud to be here, and it's a really, really cool town. And it's not just Broadway. Like a lot of people think it's just like that Broadway strip where it's bar to bar to bar and honky tonks. But yeah, there's so much more.
You've already given so much great advice for students, for recent graduates. What are some other pieces of advice that I haven't asked you, that I haven't brought up, that you think that students should know about trying to break into the media world in general, but especially radio?
I think, obviously networking is a huge, huge thing. Like how I said earlier, I went up to Mike McVeigh, I gave him my stuff that ended up shaping my career. Like you never know what the possibilities of relationships can be. I mean, some may come and go, some may stick with you for the entire time, but it's worth it to meet every single person that you can. And, it's kind of funny to say, but it's also true. Media people love to talk about themselves. So if you reach out to whoever, and just ask to pick their brain, ask to find out more about them, ask them questions, get that advice. They love to talk. They love to talk. So, take advantage of that, not in a gross way, but in a way that if you are interested enough, then ask the questions, make the relationships. I think that's obviously a huge, huge part of it and how to break into things, because the more relationships you have and the more you keep yourself at the front of people's minds, they're going to think of you for those opportunities when they arise. But my favorite piece of advice kind of goes with the theme here of kindness. And it's actually something that Dave Rickards had said to me, and it stuck with me like glue. And it's basically that it in the end, it's not the talent that matters. It's how you treat people. It's being a good person, because if you make it through your entire career by just being cutthroat and not caring how you treat other people, or, throwing your relationships to the side, it's not going to be as fulfilling. And also people aren't going to want to work with you. Like when you're a good person, when you're easy to work with or positive to work with, people are going to want to work with you. You're going to get more opportunities. And that's absolutely my experience. And yeah, my favorite piece of advice, just continue to be a good person over anything.
I'm glad that you worked behind the scenes first before you started to work in front of the camera or in front of the microphone, because I think that's really important to know all the different people's jobs. I tell young sports broadcasters, go inside the truck, know what the director does, know what the producer does, know what the person who's updating the score does, know what the replay people do. I've seen so many times where the person on air is struggling and you can tell that they're just blaming everybody else, even though it's their fault, but it's just their own insecurity. And I'm like, don't be that guy. Don't be that girl. Don't be that person who tries to blame other people. And it's just a pain to be around. Like you said, like, know everyone's job, respect that they have a job. And ultimately, when you do that, then the people behind the camera, behind the microphones, they want you to succeed even more when you treat them that way. And then the show is just so much better.
Yep, 100%. That is the philosophy to go by.
Okay, we're going to wrap this up here. One of the things that I like to do is have everyone brag about another San Diego State alum that's in the communications business that is doing something. And I just realized that I did not tell you this in advance. So I'm going to kind of put you on the spot. If you need a minute or two to think of somebody, let me know and I'll go first, because I come up with somebody every week. But if there's someone from San Diego State, whether it was a peer before you, after you, at the same time as you, who is doing something in the world of communications at some point in time, brag about what they are doing.
Oh, good question. Hold on. I got to look. There's a person that comes to mind.
Okay. Yeah. Well, as you look that up, I'll go first.
Okay.
Okay. So I just found this person today, and I felt like this was like a good person based on our topic. Her name is Vanessa Rock. And she is rocking it literally and figuratively, I guess you could say. She started a podcast when she was 21 years old called On the Rocks. And she was able to network and build an audience and connect with her community. I found her website today. It's vanessarock.com. And so she has been a podcaster, and she currently works for Talent Hack. That's an agency in New York. And she's done a lot of different podcasts that really help bring out books, and especially like self-help books and other books that kind of like bring out the best in yourself. She's worked for a number of different marketing agencies. She just graduated from San Diego State not too long ago, just a couple of years ago. but she's definitely out there rocking it, again, literally and figuratively, with what she's doing and using the platform of a podcast to grow and let people know about books and build up, the social media of CEOs and things like that. So Vanessa Rock, way to rock, young lady.
That's incredible. I love that. All right. The alum that I want to brag about is Heather Myers, who is an anchor at KFMB, which is actually like the same building that I used to work at. But I have been seeing her just crushing it whenever I open up Facebook or whenever I'm back in San Diego. Like, her face is everywhere and she hosts so many things, and she's just an incredible broadcaster.
Excellent. All right. I love it because, I mean, that's the whole point of this podcast is where you at, because we want to let people know where you at in your career, literally where you're at, and whether it's Nashville or San Diego. And so thanks for helping us get the word out, because this is sort of like the thing that I really have a passion about is I want everyone to realize what a great JMS we have at San Diego State. You know, we hear about Syracuse and Arizona State and Missouri and Northwestern. I'm like, no, there's so many great communications studs that come from San Diego State. So we got to keep sharing the gospel about how everyone's doing it around the country, including you, Elaina. So thank you so much for being a part of this week's podcast.
Josh, thank you so much. And thank you for doing this podcast. Seriously, I think that that's incredible that you're sharing that passion and wanting to show, because yes, it is an incredible school for journalism. And I'm really proud to be an alumni. Thank you.
Well, keep making us proud. Come back at some point to see the beach. Your dog needs to see the beach. Your dog needs to see campus, and keep connecting.
Exactly. I will. I hope to see you sometime soon.
All right. Once again, that is Elaina Smith. Nights with Elaina is the show. It's not that hard to find it, like 150 stations around the country where she interviews the biggest stars in country and gives you the inside scoop on Nashville. We are so proud of her. Once again, my name is Josh Sushan. I'm your host. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. If you are an alum, get back in touch with the university, find a way to get involved in the university. If you are a student, reach out to Elaina, reach out to myself, reach out to any of the guests that we've had on this podcast. There was a part of me that says, hey, how do you reach them? But no, you're a journalism student. Find out how to reach them. It's not that hard. Use your journalism skills to reach out and find Elaina, whoever else. Again, the name of the podcast is Where You At, and we will talk to you again next week.
Thanks for listening to the Where You At podcast. This is Amy J. Smith from the class of 98. Thanks to Martine Marine for creating the music you're hearing right now, and Alex Piscatelli for her work on the podcast name and the artwork on social media. And a reminder to SDSU alums, we really want to know, where you at? Tell us about your career. Get involved in the department. You can donate your time or your money. You can mentor students. You can speak in the classroom, in person or Zoom. You can provide internship opportunities to students. Help us grow the department. Again, thanks for listening. Subscribe to this podcast. Tell your friends. Recommend us a future guest. And go Aztecs!